Welcome to Canon Conversation 794. This is a continuation of yesterday. Yesterday I was asked the question about masturbation and where that fits in the Romans 1 picture of the sexual sins, where you start out with the trying to get rid of the knowledge of God through multiple opposite sex partners, then with multiple same-sex partners, and then God gives you over to a reprobate mind. And really what we covered is the Bible doesn't speak about masturbation that I know of, and I don't see it there in Romans 1. It seems like it's a different type of sexual sin. It's not really for the getting rid of the knowledge of God, and the difference, it seems like, is because the same-sex partners or the opposite sex partners is really a union of two people into one. And God has made it to where you just have that with one person. If you've got a man's mind is different from a woman's mind, and then the two get together and they're together for life, well, then it's more like you've got one complete mind. But of course you got two different bodies, and so you have that trouble in the flesh about what you're going to do. But if you just have one, and what you do is you learn to get along, you learn to compromise, you learn how to, this is important to you, so we'll do that, but this is important to me, so then in that case we'll do what I want to do. But if you're just having multiple partners, well, then you don't learn that art of working together like that, and you don't check each other's sin nature. Because when it gets to the point where the other person, and that's really why I think you have these short relationships with the opposite sex, is because you get to the point where you don't want to give in. You want to do what you want to do, and the other person is trying to stop you, so you just dump them and go to the next person, and you keep doing that. And so you're losing that check of marriage and family. And masturbation doesn't really fit into that equation because it's more of a recreational sex type thing. As I mentioned, like, for example, I had that tooth aching, killing me, and so they ended up giving me hydrocodone, which is an opioid, and it worked great. I took it for a few days. I got my tooth pulled, and then I took it for, I think, maybe only one day after that. And then I still had some left over, and I said, well, this can be addictive to get to this, so I just got rid of it, and I didn't use it anymore. So the opioid hydrocodone is good, but for a limited use. And that's really how you can view sex, is sort of like a hydrocodone type thing, is that God has prescribed it to be used in a certain way, which is good. It's the binding of the man and the woman together. It is where you have that joint thing for life, and you learn to compromise to get along. And I think also it's interesting that the sex drives of the man and the woman are different. I think usually, it depends on age and circumstance and all this, but I think usually the sex drive of a man is to have sex about twice a week, and for a woman is to have sex about once a week. And so, and God does that on purpose. He has different sex drives, because then that way you don't let that control you, because you love the other person and you're only going to be with the other person. So then you compromise in that. Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians 7. He says the woman, her body, when you get married, the woman's body is not her own, and when you get married, the man's body is not his own. And really, you've got to make that compromise together. And then there are times maybe that you fast from sex, that you don't get together, and it's for a spiritual thing. It says, to focus on Christ rather than the physical. And there are times when maybe it's not possible. Maybe you're really stressed out, you got a lot to do, you're maybe sick, or you're injured, or there are things that where you're not going to have sex once a week or twice a week or whatever it is. And so and that way you don't let that control you. You don't let sex be your God. Don't let sex control you. What you're doing is you're allowing the love between the man and the woman that God has instituted, one man and one woman, be that control. And just like the hydrocodone, it was a great use to me for that. However long I took it, 5-6 days, I guess it was total. But then I put it away. Well, actually, I gave it away. I gave it to a nonprofit that distributes those types of leftover things. I didn't want it in the house because it's not something that is good unless for specific situations. And that's how it is with sex. You got the sex drive, but if you're not married, you don't use it. And you say, well, that's too hard. Well, I can understand because of this society that we're in, that you just bombarded with things. And that's what I wanted to talk about too, is when they came out with the condom, birth control, specifically for men, but specifically for women, that's when all of a sudden the free sex movement came in. And then you see the United States start going down that downward spiral. Sex with multiple partners of the opposite sex starts with the condom for the, or I shouldn't say condom, the birth control pill for the woman back in the 50s and 60s. And then you go down there. So what it does is it separates sex from a marriage type relationship, which is designed for pleasure, sure, but the primary use of sex is to have kids. I mean, that's the only way you're going to do it, unless modern science, but that's how God designed it. And but now when you take birth control, well, now it's just sex, it's just for recreational use. You're not going to have any kids from that. And so what that did is it separated the pleasure, where it made sex recreational. So just like the hydrocodone, hydrocodone had its good use. But if I just say, well, I like it because it makes me feel good, so I'm just going to take it. And I don't have the toothache, I don't have the pain, I just want to take it to make me feel good. Well, that's when you get addicted to it, and now you're relying upon that, and that's where the issues start. That's why the opioid addiction here in the U.S. has been so bad. And the same thing with sex, is that once you got the birth control pill, well, now sex is now a recreational type thing. And so then you pursue it just for pleasure rather than for having kids. And when that takes place, then now sex becomes your God. You're not curbing your sex drive based upon your spouse and just what's going on in life. And if you want to have kids or don't want to have kids, you're not doing it based on that, but you're doing it based on just having fun. And that's where the masturbation becomes in, because now you get rid of the other partner. And I think the reason it's not in the Romans 1 equation is that you don't have that other partner there, and the control and the things involved in that to try to get rid of the knowledge of God. Now, certainly, again, the masturbation is a sin, but it's a different type. I think it's more of a recreational sex sin as opposed to a control over the same sex or the opposite sex and to become God. So I think that's why it's not mentioned in Romans 1. Now, having said that, the problem is that since the birth control came out and now sex is separated as a recreational type thing, it creates a different problem. And that is trying to fulfill the lust of the flesh, which, by the way, are never satisfied and always want more. And so then you're not pursuing God. So even if all you do, let's say, is masturbate, then you're still going by the flesh. And because you can never be satisfied, it's just going to get worse and worse. And so when you're doing that, your mindset, you're not using the mind of Christ anymore, you're using a fleshly mind. And the issue in our society then, because once the birth control pill comes out, now you've got the recreational sex thing going, is what it does is it makes it all about the physical, the flesh. When you're married, yeah, the physical is there, you're physically attracted to your wife, but it's not just that. My wife and I were married 11 years before she died of COVID, and she had a thyroid issue. They took half of her thyroid removed. She was constantly gaining weight after that, the last 5 years of her life. Physically speaking, even if she wasn't doing that, physically speaking, we're more attractive physically speaking when we're, say, in our teens and our 20s than we are in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and on. Because the curse of sin, it just happens. You get wrinkles, you have body aches, you have pain. You start losing your hair for the men. You get liver spots. You get, all these types of things that happen as you get older. And so usually it's the physical thing that gets the man and the woman together because they're younger. And then when they get married, as time goes on, they're physically speaking, they're not as attractive. And my wife gained a lot of weight toward the last 5 years of her life due to the thyroid issue. But to me, she was more physically attractive when she died than she was when I married her. Even though if someone looked at her, look at a picture of her marriage versus what she was when just before she died, people would say, oh, well, she was prettier then, because that's how it is. You're more attractive when you're younger. I realize if you had a picture of me when I was in my 20s compared to what I'm now in my 40s, I would be considered more handsome in my 20s, because that's just the curse of sin. You just get uglier as you get older. I mean, I hate saying it that way, but that's just how it is. But yet when you're in a marriage relationship, it's not just about the physical part. It is that you get to know the person, you get to love them. We've been through trials, been through trials of her grandmother getting dementia, and her having to take care of her. Trials of, her mother getting surgeries. Trials of me losing a job. Trial of me getting a surgery, her getting a surgery. Things that go on with family disputes and issues and deaths in the family. You go through life is what you do, and you go through it together. And what that does is that forms a deeper, if you want to call it, spiritual bond or bond in the soul. And it's not just a physical, fleshly, attractive type level. And so that's why when you look at your spouse now after 11 years, she's more attractive to me than she was when I married her, even though physically speaking, that's not the case, because of what we've had that bond in marriage, the two becoming one, and we've just gone through life together as one. And I believe that's the case for pretty much everybody who's married a long time, is that their spouse is more handsome or more pretty as they get older, even though physically someone who doesn't even know them would say, well, of course they're much more attractive when they're in their 20s, But you see, when you get to the point of the masturbation or the birth control pill, where it's just all about the physical, and you don't have that lifelong bond with the other person, and then what it does then is it makes it all about the physical, and you can see society doing that. The whole sexual revolution and all the sexual sins, it just really snowballed starting in 1920s. The Roaring 20s. And the reason they're the Roaring 20s is because now you're not living on a farm anymore. For the first time in America's history, the majority of the people in the United States are living in a city. Started in the 1920s. And so then it's not about, well, I got to find somebody who lives close to me, and I've got to meet with her parents and her father. If I'm not treating her right, he is going to get his shotgun out and kill me, that type of thing. So he's going to protect his daughter, and I've got to treat her right. And then I'm not sure, I see there are prostitutes or people that are physically attractive, but I'm not going to sleep with them, because if I do, well, now I'm going to get in trouble with my wife's family. And even if the father isn't around, or the brothers, because the brothers may come and beat me up, even if they're not around, I still have the issue of, how am I going to survive? Because I'm on a farm and I can't do all this myself. And so I need a wife to help out. We need two people here to make this farm work. And of course, then there's no Social Security, no retirement plans. So now I got to have kids. They got to help out. And then when I get too old to do it, now they can take it over and they can take care of us. That's how God's design is in things. But when you get into the city, that's man. And so now, today, you don't have people taking care of their parents. If anything, they just throw them in a rest home so they don't ever have to see them again. They don't ever see them. They don't do anything. And so you've got that separation there of the family ties aren't there anymore. And so you see the separation in sex as well, as it becomes a recreational type thing. And so since it is it's just all about the flesh and all about having fun, that's why you look at Hollywood and what they do. The movies, the Playboy magazines, of course I don't know if they have that anymore with the internet, and the internet stuff, the pornography that's out there. All that stuff is geared toward the flesh. They're not going to put people on there that the world can see. The average actress, Hollywood actress, you just look at, whatever you look at, advertisements in the paper, Walmart has advertisements and they have models that are wearing clothes or not wearing clothes, as the case may be. So you got all the models, so you got the print media, you've got the commercials that are on, you've got the videos on the internet, you got music videos, you got entertainment, all these things that the entertainment or the media that's out there. You look at the people that are in those things, and you compare them to your average. You think of that now. You go out to Walmart, or you go out to the grocery store, or you go somewhere, and you just look at the people that you see. Go to some place where there's a lot of people in your area, and you just people watch, see what's out there, and you compare it to the people that are on the screen, on the TVs and the movies and the internet, and they look different. The people in Hollywood have Botox injections. They've got fake body parts, plastic surgery to correct this or that, to get rid of this or that, and they do all these things to make themselves physical, because it's all about the physical. I don't get to know that Hollywood actress. I don't know anything about her. She's just on there on the screen. It's all a fleshly type thing. So the person who gets the role of the actress is the one who's the prettiest, the one who looks good physically, because that's all I'm looking at. I don't see who she really is on the inside. And so the physical attractiveness of Hollywood, TV, movies, internet, the pornography, and print media, everything is a whole lot more, physically speaking, a lot more physically attractive than what you find in just everyday life. So what it does is, and if you're watching that, man, people watch even the news. You can watch Fox News, let's say, conservative show, a lot of good content. Well, that's good. Do you know how much time they spend on getting the hair and the makeup and everything just right on these women, and the men too? It's maybe not as much time, but still, getting them to look good on screen. I mean, they make those people physically attractive. And you think, oh, I wish the women look at that. Oh, I wish I could be physically attractive like them. Well, you know what? If you spent 3 hours getting your hair and makeup and everything done, you would look like that. They spend a whole lot of time. It's a news show. It's about telling you the news. And yet they're going to spend hours getting these anchors, these people ready to be on there. Price is Right. That's about winning prizes and getting all excited about winning stuff in the game show. But yet the models, they spend hours getting them ready together. They don't look like that when they get up in the morning. These aren't regularly looking people. When you get to the media like that, it's all about the physical. And so what it does is it gets our minds conditioned to the physical. So now you see all these people on TV, you watch the news, and you see all these people, how physically attractive they are, and then you go out and say, okay, well, I got to find somebody myself. I'm tired of being alone. I'm single. I got to find me a wife. And then you go out to Walmart and say, boy, it's slim pickings out here. There's nobody. Well, physically speaking, yeah, they don't look nearly as good as the people on the screen, because they didn't spend 3 hours getting everything ready. But inside, they're probably a whole lot better, because the ones on the screen, they're so shallow, because all they're concerned about is the physical. That's why these Hollywood-type romances or relationships don't last that long, because all they're concerned about is they're so shallow, because they spend their whole lives trying to look good for the camera, that all they're concerned about is the physical. And so then they're physically attracted to some other actor, and then they get married, but then they learn what they're really like. Oh, when they get up out of bed, they don't really look like what they did on screen. oh, you know, when they act, when we're around them, they're not all nice and pleasant like they are on the screen. You know, I don't like this person anymore. So, you know, I'd much rather be with somebody who is normal look. I mean, that's one thing that I liked about Lana, was that she didn't wear a lot of makeup and jewelry. And when we were married, she did not wear jewelry. She did not wear makeup, because I loved her for who she was on the inside, not on the outside. And if you love somebody for what they are on the inside, then they become attractive to you on the outside, which is why I mentioned that people who are married for years, they're more attracted to their spouse after 30 years than they were at first, even though physically speaking, they don't look as good, because of the bond that they've had on the inside. That's lasting. And that grows. Whereas the physical, it just gets worse as you get older, you know? So, but the problem is with Hollywood and society is that it's geared toward the physical, because now we've got the recreational type sex. And that's why the guy who sent me the email said that you got 99% of unsaved kids masturbating. I mean, that's ridiculous. But it's because the whole society is geared around what the physical looks like. And since they value the physical over the spiritual or the soul, then it's all superficial and it's all about recreational. And so the great sin of masturbation isn't really the act itself, it's just the mindset that it gets you in, that you would value. You're following its entire fleshly pursuit. And we'll get into that more next time. So thanks for watching.